And welcome back, everybody. We're talking to CEOs and business leaders. And today we've got a very special guest. We've got CEO and co-founder of McDermott and Bull Executive Search. Rod McDermott is here. Hey, Rod.
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Yeah, man, doing great. Well, I appreciate you being on the show here. We've got, I think this is going to be really interesting and super helpful for me and for the listeners. But why don't we set it up here a little bit and provide some context and tell me a little bit more about what you do at McDermott and Bull.
Sure. So McDermott and Bull is an executive search firm based in Southern California. We've been around a little over 20 years. We're actually about to hit our 21st anniversary in January. And we're a national firm, actually somewhat international. We've got offices in the U.S., Canada now in Vancouver, and also in Europe in Amsterdam. And so companies hire us to go find them executives. So, you think of maybe one of your clients that's moving into a bunch of space or has a bunch of space, and their CFO just quit, or they've decided that they're going to go public, and they have a CFO who's never been at a public company before. They need a public company experienced CFO. For example, that's just one example. Could be the sales, could be CEO, could be board members. But they call us and they say, this is what we're looking for. We've got this laundry list of things we'd like to satisfy. Can you help us go find this person? And our job is essentially to go out into the marketplace and attract that right person, identify them first, and attract them to the opportunity.
Great. And, I'm really interested on how you originally got started in that business.
Yeah. So my partner and I got into search in fact, most people do it this way. Very few people, I should say. I know one guy who had a plan to get into search from high school, which is really odd. But most of us stumbled into the business. I was a VP of sales and marketing from a tech company. We did computer security. And I was traveling all over the place all the time, gone 70% of the time, didn't see my family, had 2 little kids at home. I was early 30s. And I kind of, woke up one day and realized, I'm kind of living somebody else's agenda. I am, I report to a CEO, and we've got, every quarter we got to hit our numbers, and I'm traveling all the time, and I wasn't seeing my family all that much, and I wasn't in control of my success, my future, right? And I had a certain amount of control, but not a huge amount. There were a lot of other variables. And so I decided that wasn't the life I was meant to live. And so I started a long 6-month-long journey of figuring out what that was. And I took a pad of paper like this, one of these big notepads, and I had it in my briefcase whenever I was on a plane. And I started writing things down about my ideal life. What were the characters? Because Bob, I had no idea what I should do.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I thought I found my dream job. I'm working for this tech company. I'm working with Dell and Apple and Gateway back in the day and all these great companies, and running sales and having parts of it I was having a ball. Other parts, I'd probably be divorced today. My wife wasn't used to, she didn't grow up in a house where anybody traveled. So it was challenging for us. So I didn't know what I wanted, but I wrote down the characteristics of my ideal life. And I just made this long list. And then one day, probably 4 or 5 months into this journey of trying to figure out what I was going to do next, while I was working, I still kept my job, and I was out hustling.
Yeah.
And I was meeting with a sales consultant that my firm had hired to work with us. And he became a dear friend. I still work with him today. He actually does candidate assessments for our firm. So that's one of the things he does, is he'll assess people. And so we use him as a third-party assessment company. But he and I were sitting down one day. He goes, "Man, you're killing yourself, and this isn't the right company for you. You got to do something else." And I said, "Yeah, I know. I've come to that conclusion." He says, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "I have no idea." But I said, "I know what I want my life to look like." And so I pulled out my pad of paper and I went through all these notes with him. And he says to me, "Have you ever thought of executive search?" And I go, "No." He goes, "I got a friend who owns a firm. Let me introduce you." And then that started me on what became another 6-month journey to explore different search firms and different kinds of executive search, from kind of contingent level search, which is a little bit lower level, all the way to what we do, which is retained executive level search, and C-level, VP levels, board level, things like that. And so that's what got me into this. And I started meeting these firms, and I found this firm out of Chicago, a top 5 firm, and they were expanding their Southern California presence, and I joined them. And so that's got me into the business. And then a couple of years later, there was a transaction at the company. And at the same time, my future business partner and I were being recruited by the largest firm in the world in our space, Korn Ferry. And we were this close to going to Korn Ferry. And one night we had dinner with our wives, and we were talking about, well, we can stay where we're at, even though they're going through this transaction. We can go to Korn Ferry, or we can, look behind door number 3, and that's, start our own thing. And so we decided to start McDermott and Bull, and that's how we got into this.
Wow, it's a great story. And it's also interesting because I want to dig into that process a little bit that you mentioned with the pad of paper, because I know now you have a program where you're helping people, individuals who, I in this podcast, I get to talk to a lot of people, and most of them are, they found their passion. Work isn't really work to them. It feels like it's just an activity for them, but not everybody's at that position. If they're in their 40s, 50s, or even 60s, do you see that a lot? People coming to you and saying, Rod, I'm not sure I'm where I'm supposed to be in my career, or even what I'm doing in my life?
Yeah, Bob, I see it all the time. And you would be surprised. I see it with CEOs. I'll give you a quick example. So we used to do these CEO dinners back pre-COVID. We called it the McDermott and Bull Gathering Dinners. And I think one year we did like 30 of these, right, throughout the West Coast. And, we have partners in San Diego, and they would host these dinners with CEOs or CFOs. And at one of these dinners I was at Mastro's up here in Orange County, I'm sitting next to a bank CEO on one side, and I've got a manufacturing company CEO on the other side of me. And we broke up into groups of 3, and we had to ask each other questions. And then one of us, we'd introduce each other, right? And one of the questions was, if you weren't doing what you do, what would be your dream job? And everybody around there had something totally different. I mean, it was rare, but maybe like 10 or 20% of the time, people would say, I already got my dream job. I'm doing my dream job. 80 to 90% of the time, somebody would say something totally different. And then as I'm getting into this, as you're getting to know the 2 people around you, you're saying, wow, that's really cool. That's really interesting. So, I mean, is that something you really are passionate about? And they go, yeah. I said, so what would make it so you could actually do that? And they go, well, I kind of hit the lottery, or, sell my company for $1 gazillion, and then I can do what I really want to do. And you start hearing these things, right? There's a trend that you would hear, like, I want to, then I can do what I really want to do. And I would always say, well, why can't we do that now? Why, what are the things stopping you? And so I think and that's why I started this new company, Activate 180, which really does 2 things. It's about helping employees and helping corporations get their employees more engaged in what they're doing. It's a corporate coaching model that I like to say democratizes executive coaching, right? A lot of companies use executive coaches up here at the very senior exec level. I've used a coach for 20 years. We pay them $400 an hour. It's expensive. I can't afford to give everybody in my company a coach like that, right? It's too much money. But I would kind of loan him out every once in a while. Somebody would say, hey, can I meet with so-and-so this month for an hour? Sure, go ahead. What we're doing is we've decided that we think everybody deserves to have a coach to be able to reach their full potential. And so we've created an Activate 180, a corporate coaching model where we bring in coaches and we develop them ourselves, and we're able to provide them to companies for all levels of their employee base at a very affordable price. For instance, most folks in a company, like 80%, kind of the big bulge of folks that work for companies, will be $125 an hour. So if you think about it, and on average, they'll meet with a coach once a month. So it's like $1,500 a year. So it comes out to between 1 and 2% of their annual comp. And they don't pay for it. The company pays for it. This is a way that the company can help you become more engaged, improve your productivity and your performance, improve their retention, because now you're being developed, right? The company's actually paying somebody on your behalf. And the responses that we get from employees that sign up for coaches, we just started coaching some really, really cool companies that are doing really world-changing things. And the employee responses that we're getting to our service are ridiculously off the charts. They're saying they're sending. I got an email from the president of this one company. It's a $500 million company owned by a $20 billion company. And they just sold the company to them a couple of years ago. And the president sent over a note and said, this is the kind of stuff I've been getting since we launched you guys. And it's just an amazing email from an employee who's saying, hey, this is life-changing. Let me tell you a little bit about my story, all kinds of stuff like that. So Activate 180 is about trying to flip that switch on that, where I told you 10 to 20% of the people are living their dreams.
Yeah.
80 to 85% aren't. We're trying to flip that.
Right.
That's the 180. And so if we can do that and give people engagement and show them that their companies can be the place where they can live their dream lives and experience the things they want to experience, they don't have to change jobs. What I found, Bob, is oftentimes it's kind of an inside job, right? You see these people and they're like, God, I report to a board, or even at the C levels, right? You think these guys have it made, they're making $1 million, $2 million a year and everything's great. And it's not, man. Their stress is off the charts. They can't wait until it's over, and they ring the bell and they get the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Well, what about the journey, man? Let's have fun with the journey.
Right. Well, I love that concept of, everybody having a little bit of coaching. As you mentioned, getting a private business coach is a pricey thing to have.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know this more than anybody, the value of coaching. And we have coaches all the time, right? I had a football coach. My son has football coaches. But then when we talk about a business coach, it's, not everybody's doing that.
Yeah. Oh, no. And I will tell you, there's a book I read a couple years ago, and this is one of the things that got me on this path. The biggest thing that got me on this path was this idea of engagement, right? I'll tell you this quick story. One of my biggest clients a number of years ago, when I got into search, I did almost all technology search. So I walk into this company. I won't mention who it is, but it's a massive computer company that we all know about, right? And I walk into this company. I'm going back to the head of talent acquisitions office, and he's like, okay, this is our product management area. And then we keep walking. This is accounts receivable. This is supply chain. And there's just a massive sea of cubicles. I'm telling you, this is like 2 football fields. It's a massive, massive building.
Yeah.
And nobody's saying anything. There's no bustle. There's no hustle. And everybody's just sitting there doing this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, are these people, are they really happy? Are they really excited about what they're doing? They're just, and I'm telling you, and then I started talking, I got to know him and I got to know other people at the company. And the answer was no. They just, and I would say, well, why are you doing that? Well, I got a mortgage and I got car payments and then I got married and we bought a house and I've got kids I got to put through college. And so life takes over and gets people onto this wheel, this hamster wheel. And they live for vacations and retirement. And retirement is, God, if I can just have this money in the bank and I can retire, then I can do what I really want to do. I can buy that house in Havasu and go water skiing, or, and you're working all these years to finally be happy. And I'm like, no, that's not the answer. How about we make it so that you're enjoying your stuff so much it doesn't even feel like work? And by the way, when you're in that zone, you are the most successful. The people I've seen that do something that doesn't feel like work, make the most money, have the most fun, smile the most, have great family lives because they're happy, and they have great life experiences. And they generally don't work as hard. They're not working 15-hour days. They're working 5 or 6, and they control their agendas. And so that's what we're trying to convey to folks, is like, if we can get people in the zone. And the second thing I was going to tell you is this book I read a couple of years ago. It's called The $1 Trillion Coach. It was written by Eric Schmidt, the CEO of Google. And he had some co-authors, and it was about a coach who coached Google, Apple, Intuit, a couple other companies. And they called him the $1 Trillion Coach. And by the time the book came out, when they finished the book at the end, they said, hey, we decided not to change the title, but it really should be the $2 Trillion Coach based on the market cap of these companies, right? By the way, this book only came out like 3 or 4 years ago. The market cap of Google alone is $2 trillion, of Apple is $2 trillion. I mean, so that coach has had his hand into probably $6 or $7 trillion of market cap creation. by coaching these folks. And it really talked about the power of a guy like Eric Schmidt being able to go to this guy and talk to him about challenges that he was having with people, challenges that he was having with his board. Sometimes it was personal stuff. Sometimes it was like, God, I'm out of balance. I'm out of whack. My wife said I hadn't been home for dinner in 3 weeks, stuff like this. Okay, let's get you aligned. Let's make sure we can, and this is our goal with Activate 180. We have a 5-pillar program. We want each of those 5 pillars to be 8s, 9s, or 10s out of 10. If we can help everybody achieve an 8+ in each of those pillars, ideally a 9 or a 10, they're going to be hitting it. They're going to be happy. They're going to be engaged. They're going to feel appreciated. They're going to feel like their work matters, and they're going to bring the best versions of themselves to their work.
So someone who's listening to the podcast right now, let's say, and they are realizing, or they know deep down, whatever they're doing is not what they want to be doing long term. Let's give them maybe 1 or 2 quick things that they can take action on, possibly, and get that started.
Yeah. So a lot of people have an idea on, I call this, what would make your heart sing, right? That's the question I ask people. Tell me what would make it feel like not work. What would make this feel like, I get to do this. This is amazing, right? What does that look like? And you might not be able to describe an actual job. You might be able to describe the characteristics of a job, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can describe some of those, we can kind of work around it. And oftentimes I'll see, Bob, that what they have, I don't know if you've ever read this book called Acres of Diamonds.
No.
It's about a guy who owns a ranch, I think in Africa, South Africa or something. And, he's like, God, I'm toiling the soil here. And it's a farm, I guess, maybe not a ranch, something like that. I read it years and years ago. But he's like, and all these guys are discovering diamonds everywhere. And, what happened was he's looking outside, right? He's looking to try and find what he really wants somewhere else other than what he has. And it turns out that underneath his property were acres of diamonds. He had them right there all along, right? And oftentimes we all have our acres of diamonds right where we are. We just don't know it, right? So what I try to tell people first and foremost, I'll have somebody come in here and I'll be talking to them. It could be an executive. I'll say, why are you thinking about leaving XYZ company? And they'll say, well, there's really no opportunity for growth. And I'm thinking to myself, you're a VP at a $20 billion company, and that company's growing, they're acquiring. I wonder if that's true or if it's just how you feel. And I wonder if there's a way to turn it on. I had this dialogue with a person years ago at a massive Orange County company. They ended up selling for like 65 or $70 billion a couple of years ago. But this was a guy who he bought me lunch. It was a guy I used to work with a bunch of years ago, like 30 years ago. And he found out I was in search in Orange County. He's like, hey, let's get together for lunch. He's like, yeah, I'm thinking about leaving. I'm like, man, you were at a cool company. He goes, you think? And I go, yeah. And he's telling me his job, and he had some interface with the CEO. I'm like, well, tell the CEO what you want. I mean, bring in your key constituents to your path, your career path. If you don't tell them, you're waiting for them to come to you with kind of a red carpet to roll out. But you have to decide what it is you want, what would make you happy, what would keep you engaged, what would help you develop your career, and say, this is a direction I'd really like to see my career go. What are the gaps between where I'm at and where you think where I need to be, in your opinion, for me to get there? Because I want to be that person for the company. And because he had exposure to the CEO, he was able to have that kind of, a relationship and interaction. Well, he did do that. And also over time, he actually got that dream job at that company. And then the company, had a massive sale and he had a massive exit, and, he didn't have to work anymore.
Nice.
But what it tells you is that sometimes what we want is right under our noses, right? But we have to explore it. Now, sometimes it's not. And if it's not, you've got to think about those components, those characteristics. And I look at, for me, I'll just share with you a couple. When I was flying around working at this other company, I realized I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial, right? I wanted to do something for myself, but not by myself. And executive search gives you that option because it's, I have my own practice. If I have a big practice, I make big money. If I have a very small practice and don't generate that much, like your business, I don't make that much money. So the bigger my practice, the more money I make. And I had kind of an income threshold of, where I wanted to provide for my family. I also wanted to be able to be in a business where I could choose my clients. I could choose the industries. I wanted to be in a business where my clientele, my relationships were C-level executives. So, heads of HR, CFOs, CEOs. That's where I wanted to play. And so those are like three characteristics, control my income, be able to decide what kind of companies I wanted to work with, and make sure and have my relationships be up here. Because it's interesting to me. I'm a business geek. The business is my hobby. And so when I'm meeting with a company, I'm walking around, I'm like, how does this work? And how do you make money at this? What are your biggest challenges? What's keeping you up at night? How hard is it to put that thing into space? We have a couple of space companies that we work with. So it's pretty cool what we get to do, but I would share that with somebody else and start them on their journey. The other thing on our individual side, so we have, Activate 180 is our corporate coaching program. For individuals that are looking at making a career change, we have a company called Project Activate, and we call it a project because it really is a project. It's that job search timeframe, right? What is it that you're most purposeful about, right? What is your purpose? What is your why? And how can I align that with what you do? If I can align what you do with, what you're purposeful about, then it's not going to feel like work every day, and then you're gonna do really well at it, and you're probably gonna make really, really good money.
Yeah. Good stuff, Rod. I love it. I also noticed in looking at your LinkedIn, you're in the digital age. You got the McDermott Minute where you're giving tips on interviewing tips, LinkedIn tips, all kinds of great content that you have there. How has that, being in this new digital marketing age, how is that affecting your business?
Huge. So, we it's funny. I've always been more sales hype, I call it big S, little M. So more sales, less marketing. We hired a head of marketing a number of years ago at our company, and she has just modernized everything we're doing, including social media marketing. So we're putting out a lot of videos. People watch those videos. They create a lot of traffic, really. But really what we're trying to do is share a little bit of our knowledge with the rest of the world. And every once in a while I get, more than every once in a while, probably at least once or twice a week, I'll get pinged either on LinkedIn or I might get an email from somebody saying, hey, I watched your video and I used it here. There's a young sales guy who actually works for my son's company. My son has a recruiting firm as well. It does one level below where we are. So we work together quite often with them. And there's a young guy that works for him now who was telling me, before I came to work here, I was watching your videos all the time, and he was a sales guy at another company, at an insurance company. He's like, they really pumped me up because they kind of got me in the right frame of mind. So I thought that was kind of funny. They're not really sales ones, but they're a lot about building relationships, and that's what interviewing is. I give interview tips, and I'm like, it's getting to know you, and if I'm interviewing for a job with you, Bob, I want to know about you, and of course I'm going to do my research, but I want to know, what's important to you, right? What makes you, like, if you hire me at the end of the day, and this is an incredible fit, and it's been a great success, tell me the 3 or 4 things that define that. I'm helping you bring in the right amount of money. You and I get along really well, so the culture fit is great, and I bring you energy. I represent you in the marketplace really well, so you have no qualms about putting me in front of your biggest clients. Yeah. I'm helping you build your brand, so I like doing these things like your podcast and other things kind of behind the business, not just the business, but beyond the business. Maybe those are the 4 things, right? So I just want to get to know you and find out what it is that success looks like to you and how we can work together. And that's what interviews are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say, if people are coming up to you and saying that they've seen your stuff or have a question about it, that's a great compliment. I mean, just the fact that they're even watching it.
Yeah. No, it really, I dig that. It's a lot of fun to hear that. And I feel like I'm doing a little bit of good for people too. If I can help people out, especially, interviewing is the hardest thing for people, and doing job search, it's so friggin' hard. You can see people who live big. Like I saw this, I was at Dad's weekend at TCU this weekend with my daughter, right? She's a junior at TCU, and I'm hanging out with her roommates. And one of her roommates says, oh, I want to get an internship this summer at this bank. And this gal is a big gal in terms of her personality, right? She's bubbly and she's got great rap, and we're just joking around the whole weekend. And I got to be friends with her dad, and we're all just like hanging out, right? And I said, "Oh, that's a cool bank. One of my partners here does work with their parent company. I think he knows the head of HR. If you want, let me know what you want to do there, and maybe we can help you out." And all of a sudden, she started playing really small, and it went from playing really big to playing really small. I'm like, no, don't do that. Play really big. Always play big. Go for what you want. Leverage relationships. That's all it's about. You're going to do the work. We're just going to help line you up. But that's still you doing the work, talking about, hey, I want to have an internship at this bank. Great. Who do you know? What's going to work that pattern? But too often I see people play small. And because of that, they kind of blend in with everybody else. It's the old thing, like you apply to a job on LinkedIn, right? And over LinkedIn, I should say. And in it, the company says, don't contact us. So nobody contacts them. But 500 people submit their LinkedIn profiles as applicants for the job. Yeah. How do you differentiate yourself?
Right.
Yeah. So I tell, and my hiring managers, the companies I work with, I ask them, I said, do you guys use LinkedIn? Oh yeah, our HR department uses LinkedIn all the time. I said, have you ever gotten a call from a candidate who's applied for a job that has been posted on your LinkedIn? And they're like, yeah, but it's really rare. I said, does it turn you off? Do you tell them I'm not considering you because you didn't play by the rules? I haven't heard a single person say that yet. In fact, most of the time they say, hey, if somebody leaves me a really good voicemail and they tell me they applied for this job, hey, it's, Bob, it's Rod McDermott. I just want to let you know I applied for that product manager job that's on LinkedIn. It looks like it reports to you. Just wanted to introduce myself, share with you that I'm coming out of Google, had a great job over at Google, would love to work with your company, love to share with you a little bit about what I know about your product lines and how they can fit with what I've done in the past. Anyway, Bob, hopefully we'll have a chance to meet. Here's my phone number. It's a really simple message, right? Yeah. You then call your talent acquisition person who posted that job and say, hey, I got this great voicemail from this guy, Rod McDermott. He said he applied. Talent acquisition then goes to the list of 500 applicants to find mine. And I go all the way on. I get to the top of that pile now. They're going to submit me because you brought it up. And the heads of TA that I've talked to, they say that's exactly what happens. So when people just play by the rules, they literally, you go right to the middle, and the middle is moderation. It's mediocre. It's the middle. You want to be great, outstanding. You want to be at the extreme.
Well, with that great advice, I'm going to leave it at that. And Rod, thanks so much for being with me today. Really appreciate it. Continued success. I'm going to put your website and your information all over the platforms for the podcast. And again, thanks so much.
Hey, Bob, thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's do it again soon. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that'd be fun.